Good morning, brothers and sisters. Today, I would like to talk to you about a very, very big choice that I decided to make for myself. And all the way back in 2009. And I think that for, people pleasers or people that are so used to giving themselves away to other people, trying to fix situations that seem impossible to fix, will struggle with this decision. And it's essentially just choosing yourself. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time obsessing over my parents' divorce, obsessing over the fracture wound that existed in my family. And, as like a little kid, there's not much that you really feel you can do. But I think that just me being the type of person that I am, I always feel like I should do something regardless. Now, trying to get your parents back together, talking after, many, many years of fighting and things not working out. And also, like, the amount of abuse that I went through myself with, physical, mental, emotional. You would think that the last thing I'd want to do is try to repair anything, right? And I know that my brothers definitely tried in their own way too. But the thing is, because of what we went through as very young children, it's very difficult, to, number one, find forgiveness. Number two, move through that pain in order to salvage any kind of relationship with people that might have wronged us or abused us in a way. But I thought, like many of you probably think too, or have thought, that, if I could just get them back together, then everything will be okay. Or, somehow all the years of like pain and, boundary breaking and trust breaking, that all of that will melt away, right? And for a short time in the early 2000s, my parents were talking again. It wasn't entirely because of anything me or my brothers did, really. Maybe our intention and us vocalizing, certain wants and desires definitely inspired our parents in a way, but it was ultimately their choice to start talking again. But even that didn't last too long. And so I guess the whole point to me even talking about this essentially is eventually I made the decision to choose myself. I think I was avoiding choosing myself because it felt selfish and it felt wrong. And I thought that if I could fix things outside of myself, then that will fix me. And choosing myself essentially made me realize that in a way, me trying to help repair relationships outside of myself between my parents or between whomever, is just a weird form of like wanting to be in control after feeling so out of control my whole life. And also, you don't want to be like this selfish, self-centered, like gross kind of person, right? So like choosing yourself could be very, it can feel like the wrong thing to do. But how are we supposed to help other people if we're not helping ourselves? Like, the change and the healing is not going to come from outside of us. And I had to choose myself to learn that. Now, after my mom passed in 2006, I was still living with my father until 2009 when I graduated from high school and I was going to go away to college. And I had a choice. I had a choice in front of me, and this is when I made that decision. My mom passing away in 2006 definitely propelled me into this new way of thinking that, like, instead of focusing on people that I feel like I don't have any sort of impact on, or that, I don't really have any real control over. We can't control other people. And that's something that we all need to, even if we think we're helping people, we need to learn that, like, that's just an unhealthy trauma response to not feeling in control of the chaotic childhood that we grew up in. The lives that we wish that we could make exactly what we want them to be. The unrealistic expectations that were put on us that we now put on ourselves. So in 2009, I had a choice to, go into construction, get that full-time 12-hour shift type of job, help my father pay the bills. I'd be making more money, but I would be staying at home. Or I'd take a chance, go away to college, and get out of my father's house. I think because my mom passing away and the years of abuse, my choice was obvious, but it took years for me to realize it. I didn't, in an instant, struggle to choose between individuation and self-sacrifice in a way. It took many, many years of me learning that all of the years of self-sacrifice that I've been doing to try to help my family, not only was it coming from the wrong place, it was coming from a place of hurt that needed to be healed within myself, only by me. It couldn't really come from outside of me. But I also wasn't taking care of myself and living the life that I wanted to live in a way. Like, I was just getting into music, playing in bands, and not that I was going away to college to experience this, but I wanted that independence, I wanted that freedom, I wanted the feeling of being on my own, figuring it out on my own. And sure, like, I definitely had some help from my grandparents and a scholarship that I got from playing football and lacrosse, that, got me this first year of college. And it was an easy choice, but I think a lot of us have a hard time making that decision, because before that choice was so clear to me, I definitely felt like it was selfish and wrong for me to choose myself over anyone else. But this was something that I had to learn, not just over time, but in other aspects, in other types of relationships, the hard way as well. Part of the reason why I decided to start making videos like this is because I really want to share all these different struggles and different epiphanies that I've had, in the hopes that, maybe less people will have to suffer to realize certain things. I know I like gaining insight from other people. So whatever little insight I have, I feel is more important for me to share than just to keep to myself. But yeah, with that said, I had to go through abusive relationships that were just re-manifestations of my relationship with my dad, in order to learn how to choose myself, but in a healthy way. Because initially I was entering relationship by choosing myself, but in a selfish way, where I would show up for the relationship, but as a taker and not necessarily a giver, or I would give in order to receive, rather than just giving because I really liked the person. And so once the early relationships became more and more abusive, I had to learn how to break up with someone. I had to learn how to choose me over the other person, even if the other person's beating me into the ground. And that's what it took for me to learn. And it's just the last thing you want to do as someone that really cares about people is put other people over you. Because if you can't choose yourself, you can't actually heal those deeper parts of yourself. A lot of my growth has come from not just pain and loss and learning things the hard way, but also from just long periods of solitude, just sitting with those darker parts of me and allowing myself to feel the pain of not just what I've done to other people, but also what has been done to me, and finding forgiveness. This all ties back to my shadow work again. And this whole thing started with me making a video just talking about my shadow work. So it's no surprise that each video I make somehow ties back into 2023 and how I just decided to, after 30 plus years of just ignoring the sadness in me and the pain and everything that I've been through, just to move forward. And that's another thing too, is that in this society, as a man, that's kind of how we're expected to be. I would say it's generally across the board like that for everyone, because it's a very masculine energy based society. So that expectation is for both men and for women. But I think even more traditionally for men, like you just suck it up and move on, right? And I've gotten extremely good at that. But because of that level of perseverance and resilience and suppression, there's certain things that I can't remember about my childhood at all. That there's certain things that I do remember, and I allow myself to feel them. But there's like old photos that my father's taken on certain trips that we've gone on, and I guess because traumatic things happened on those trips, I've just completely blacked out that whole period. Which is sad. I don't think that should, it's a survival tactic. It's a way for us to survive these turbulent, difficult, almost abusive times in our lives. But I don't think we should deny certain parts of ourselves, certain experiences we've had, in order to live, in order to survive. Now, obviously, back then, that's what I needed to do because I was still in it. But now that I'm not in it anymore, why carry that energy with me? And it all started with choosing me. And the funny thing is, too, is that ever since I started my individuation in 2009, my friendships got better. The circles that I ran with got better. The relationships that I found myself in got better. And the funny thing too is that it wasn't like a black and white, like off and on thing, It was something that as I was choosing me more, I was learning about myself more, and I was unlearning old habits and behaviors more. So it wasn't just this clean cut, like, oh, I choose myself now, and now everything is perfect, and everyone in my life is perfect. No, I still had to deal with fake friends and abusive girlfriends, because I still carried that energy with me. That even though I was choosing myself, I still had all of this residual energy from growing up with my dad, growing up with my family. And that's the funny thing too, is that like in 2013, I was able to reconnect with my father after not talking to him for 5 years. But this was a year into my spiritual practice that I started in 2012. Meditating daily, started doing yoga, started eating better. I think I was a vegetarian for 3 years at the time. I don't know, just like a lot of different things, because like that's the thing, you don't need to like do all this aesthetic change in order to be different. You could just change your behavior. It's just your behavior and how you're treating yourself. Because like something that is deeply ingrained in me is to tear myself down when I make a mistake, or to be extremely hard on myself when I realize that I've hurt someone, or that, you know, I've hurt myself. So it's almost like this this strange loop of just shame and then shaming myself, and then shaming myself for shaming myself, and then it's just, none of that is helpful. I think that the traditionalist idea with something like that is that, oh, if you don't want to feel shame, then don't make the mistake. But you have to live with that. And so now every time, and you're human too, you're going to keep making mistakes no matter what you do. At least I know that's true for me, right? So we should allow ourselves to make mistakes. We should choose ourselves first and foremost. There's no way that I think we could ever truly, deeply love another person if we're not also loving ourselves. Just because if we're not loving ourselves, but we're loving someone else, then we're filling a void within ourselves with someone else. And now our happiness and our stability is entirely reliant on that other person. And when you put all of your baggage, all of your trauma on another person, whether they're a partner or family member, whatever, it's backbreaking. It's relationship ending. Not only have I experienced this firsthand with me doing this, but I've noticed that that's actually one of the many things that keeps remanifesting in my family. It's part of the ancestral trauma that we're here to heal and transcend. Now, obviously, easier said than done, but step one is choosing yourself. What do you need in this moment? Do you need to be alone? Then be alone. Do you need to take a bath? Take a bath. You know? Obviously, there's the pull then to just completely, especially, this is my experience. Again, I know I keep making that clarification, but I don't really like the perspective of like you. I'm only speaking from my perspective and sharing it. So if you resonate with it, then that's incredible. But I'm not going to assume that my experience is the blanket experience, and the things that I gained from my experience are things that everyone could resonate with. Obviously, we are all different. We've all lived different lives. Some people watching this right now have probably never experienced any of the things I'm talking about. Whereas someone else, they might have already experienced it, already healed it, and so they're watching this and they're like, yeah, I've been there, done that. So, but this is something very impactful, I think, that is worth sharing, because I know a lot of people, and I definitely was one of them, that just had a very hard time choosing himself. I think it's also too, like, when we don't really like ourselves and we wish we were someone else, how could we choose ourselves? How could we? If we don't think that we're worthy, or we don't think that we're like anything special, and this person is special or that person is special, and we start pedestalizing and deifying other people and wanting to be those other people, you're only robbing yourself of your own individuality and your own magic and your own power. And that's something that I was doing for many, many years, even after my mom passed away. You know, like I started doing music. I was really into pop punk. I idolized all those pop punk bands: Smash Mouth, Green Day, Blink-182. There were posters of all these bands: Rancid, The Offspring, all over my walls, even covering the ceilings. And it wasn't just because I absolutely loved their music and I could relate to their music, but it was also because I wanted to be them. I was wearing Hurley. I was wearing all these different brands that they were wearing because they were wearing them. So I was dressing like them. I was watching a lot of live videos at the time with how they would talk, certain mannerisms, certain jokes. I just absorbed it all. I absorbed it all. I even got to a point where before prom and my high school photos, like for senior year, I just had really, really bushy, I don't have them as bushy anymore, but like I had really, really bushy eyebrows back then. And I guess I wanted more of like a thinner eyebrow, SoCal look, like clean it up a little bit, you know, like I don't want it to look so bushy. So I went to a place in like the mall near me and decided to get them waxed. I guess, because my mom used to get like waxing done and stuff like that, that I figured, oh, well, that must be the best method, you know. Going to the mall to get your eyebrows waxed is already a major red flag that something's not wrong within me. But, and the result was even worse, because there might be a few photos online that are very, very hard to find, but my eyebrows were pretty much gone. The way that they cleaned them up was like pencil thin in comparison. So not only was it like a drastic change from how I used to look, but like now it looked like I really, really was trying to be someone that I wasn't. And a deeper part of me understood that that's what I was doing. But like a lot of other things, I was just suppressing that and, you know, burying it deep down because I was so ashamed of myself that I just thought that if I could just pull off being someone else that is more successful and more beloved, then I'll be more successful and more beloved. So this path of individuation developed from childhood, wanting my parents to get together, and then eventually choosing myself, realizing that I can't make people change, at least with my family, and so I decided to go to college. And then in college, I was discovering myself again. But before I left from college, I did this thing with my eyebrows that was literally the pinnacle of me not looking like me, you know? I was also like dyeing my hair different colors, I had different hairstyles. Whenever my hair would get really long, my dad would actually hold me over a bathtub and like buzz my head, which was very depowering. So no wonder I have such a hard time accepting myself, because I was never really allowed to experiment with myself and discover myself living with my father. And even though I was experimenting with myself, the way that I was experimenting with myself more than half the time was to see how far I could push myself into the image of another person. How much other qualities from people that are more appreciated, that are more accepted, how much more of that can I incorporate into myself? And because I'm a very visual person, it all started with just the look. And the look was the most extreme change. But you could even hear it in my music too back then. A lot of the way that I sang, everything, it sounded like we were just Blink-182 with breakdowns. And not gonna lie, I think some of it actually came out pretty cool, especially like when it got a little bit more hardcore with like the breakdowns and stuff like that, because even though sequence breakdowns in 2010 was a dime a dozen, like a Blink-182 with breakdowns was a little original, a little different. At least it wasn't just a straight up pop punk band trying to sound like Blink, which back then there was a laundry list, and now I'm sure that list is twice as long as it was before. But it took a lot of pain and a lot of being tested and a lot of being honest with myself. So choosing myself really gave me my power. And even though I was spending a lot of time from the moment that my mom passed away in 2006 to 6 years later, when I had my first like spiritual awakening in 2012, I was spending a lot of that time impersonating other people and not really wanting to be me, because how I identified the quote-unquote real me was the child that was always trying to make things work out with the family, and then eventually choosing myself when my mom passed away. And then when my mom passed away, since I was into like all this punk rock stuff, and I was living with my dad, and that was really tough, I decided to sacrifice myself. But instead of sacrificing myself for another person, I decided to do that for, I guess, public perspective. So it wasn't a specific person. It was literally for the world, how people viewed me. I guess I just really wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere, and I just never really felt that. But the funny thing is that the more layers were peeled away, like that last pop punk band that I was in, I was able to choose my own mental health and my own happiness by walking away from it. And even though I didn't have the strength yet to walk away from a relationship at that time, I gained so much power just from being able to walk away from what was not a healthy situation for me. And that's the thing too, is choosing yourself will also make certain people hate you, will make other people go out of their way to really try to make you feel like you're making the wrong decision, because you're choosing yourself, right? And peeling back like the abusive relationships, even though I wasn't strong enough to walk away from a relationship until 2014, it just became easier and easier for me to see myself behind the facade, behind the public persona, behind what I was trying to be, or the way that I was trying to affect people. So in 2013, I was able to have a relationship with my father again. And this time it was on my terms. And I was able to find forgiveness. And that's something else. That's a whole other can of worms I could go into, maybe in another video. Finding forgiveness in my abuser and ultimately in myself. But I think that's part of choosing yourself too, is finding that forgiveness. And each year has been a learning process. Each year since 2012, each year has been an extreme learning process, where I just saw deeper parts of me, and some of it, if not most of it, I didn't like what I saw, but I would just acknowledge it. I would acknowledge it. Sometimes I would embrace it, sometimes I wouldn't. Just because I was on this, like I was doing like a spiritual practice, mindfulness and whatnot, doesn't mean that I was just fully, bravely open to accepting every part of myself. I was still very external. I was still like looking at other people, looking to other people for validation, looking to other people for acceptance, and only really feeling it in me if my surroundings also echoed that. And I did that literally up until this year. I would say 2019 is when things started to turn, but man, that was 5 years ago. And just the beginning of this year, in 2023, not even sure when I'm going to be putting this out, but just the beginning of this year, in 2023, I finally decided, you know, the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And even though I've committed to healing, and I've committed to change, and I've committed to my spiritual practice and healing and stuff, there was a lot of resistance still. There was still a lot of like looking outside of myself, and there was still not a full self-acceptance that is so present now. Because now I'm not afraid, like, even though it might be hard, but now I'm not afraid to, like, be myself around, like, actually be myself around people. I would say back in 2012 is when I started being more authentically myself, but I still had many walls up that would mostly come down in relationship, because romantic relationship is where I feel the most safe. And it's also the deepest echo of my trauma, which is family trauma. And the deepest part of my family trauma has to do with my relationship to my parents and their relationship to each other. How are we supposed to be reliable people if we're not strong enough to stand on our own? And how are we supposed to be strong enough to stand on our own if we can't choose ourselves? If we can't sit with ourselves and be with ourselves and feel, allow yourself to feel. I know some of you definitely have no problem feeling things, but, you know, since I'm a Capricorn, and also since I'm a guy, and also because of my trauma, feeling my feelings is a very scary thing to do. It's actually easier for me to go on camera and just talk about random stuff than it is for me to be vulnerable and be real. Which obviously makes this a lot harder than if I was just like, oh, today we're unboxing a Godzilla toy, or today we're gonna talk about the music business, you know? Things that I could have branched out, I could have done things like that, but I don't feel called to. I just feel called to share my experiences with people, like the real stuff and the pain. And from my experience, the more authentic you are, the more authentic the people around you are. It's funny how that works out. So if this resonated with you, definitely drop a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear what your experience with choosing yourself has been like, and if it's been as difficult for you as it has been for me. And if you've had any identity crises like I've had. But hey, we're here and we're healing. So thank you for being here.